As you heard from Beth, there are many literacy demands within science instruction, and one of them involves reading in science. I'm going to talk to you about the types of text used in science instruction and how to integrate them into the content area. According to the article that I read, Read Like a Scientist, there are 3 common types of text that are used in science classes. The first one is popular text. The article Read Like a Scientist states that popular text make new knowledge derived from primary scientific texts accessible to the public. Popular text include newspapers, magazines, online sites, advertisements, and multimedia sources such as documentaries, websites, and blogs. Although these articles are ideal to engage students in a science unit, scaffolding is needed to help students make connections between science and their own lives. In the chart that you will see in the next few slides, popular text help to raise awareness, understanding, and encourages action and are best used at the start of a unit. The second type of text used in science instruction is textbooks. Textbooks are commonly used for instruction to inform, describe, define, and explain patterns and help students construct conceptual ideas. But they can present some challenges. According to Read Like a Scientist, textbooks contain too much content, they have a complex text structure, they contain a lot of scientific vocabulary and complicated representation. They also may lack relevance to students' lives and prior knowledge. Although some teachers choose not to use textbooks at all, textbooks can provide conceptual ideas in which students can reason and construct new knowledge when read before a lesson. So the key to using textbooks is to focus on the most relevant content and to teach students how to read a textbook. Students should be able to utilize the headings in a textbook to make predictions and to find the main idea of each section. In addition to these strategies, students should know how to chunk, reread, and annotate the text. These are all effective strategies when reading textbooks, and this is where we see the literacy component come into play in the science classroom. The third most common type of text is primary scientific literature. The use of journal articles can be used to share findings and ideas with each other, but can be challenging for non-scientists to read who are not experienced in reading this type of material. Although such literature can be a challenge, these articles can familiarize students with the major features of scientific arguments, which are claims, evidence, and reasoning. And like you saw on slide 4, Beth provided a link to an example of a graphic organizer that can be used to support this. And in order to support this kind of reading, the authors of Read Like a Scientist say to teach students the components of a typical journal article. So students should know the difference between an abstract, the introduction, results and discussion, and how to look for different kinds of information. This type of text is best used in the middle of a unit or lesson. And in order to make primary scientific literature more accessible, we can use adapted primary literature, which adapts research articles to the knowledge level of a high school student. We can also select an article that was specifically written for a high school audience on the web. I provided some different links for you that are links to different articles that were written for the high school student. This is the chart that I referenced in the past slides to show the purpose of integrating each type of text and when to use the text for a lesson or a unit. Another type of text that can be integrated into science instruction is the use of trade books. Trade books include not only informational books, but also fiction, science fiction, and poetry. They are generally more widely available and up-to-date than a science textbook, and are often more in-depth and focused on a single concept rather than a wide variety of topics, whereas a textbook will focus on multiple concepts. Trade books can also accommodate differences in reading abilities of students and differences in learning styles and are especially helpful for ELL students. They are also more interesting and less confusing than a textbook. I think it's important to note that trade books should be used to supplement science textbooks instead of replacing them, and they should be picked with care and with specific objectives in mind. According to the author of More Than Comic Books, graphic novels can be an effective way to engage students who don't yet know that they love the subject you are teaching. They are a great way to bring together text and image in a way that seems to capture students' imaginations, and they can encourage students to see science as something that they could be a part of. Many graphic novels are also nonfiction. And just like trade books, graphic novels are not meant to be an alternative to regular text, but as a supplement and to be used in a different format. They can also be used as another tool to differentiate reading instruction. But just like textbooks and trade books, graphic novels are not all equally useful, and not all are written well or have significant themes, so you must select them with care and careful consideration. To conclude our presentation, I want to read 2 quotes that were taken from the Content Matters text that shows helping students become scientific literate is possible. The authors of Content Matters state that those of us involved in science education know that the perception of science as difficult, unimportant, or irrelevant can change when students become involved in classroom science experiences that value them as learners and embody the principles of disciplinary literacy. Research shows that science classrooms, such as those that embody DL science principles and promote rigorous learning for all students, show significant gains in achievement and help to close the achievement gap. Thank you for taking the time to listen. We hope you gained some helpful information into the literacy demands and challenges in the science content area and how to support secondary teachers as a literacy coach.